Lehrhaus Judaica, in partnership with the Osher Marin JCC, presented a half-day conference in March 2013 entitled Free-Ranging Communities, Jewish Life in Marin and Hollywood. This segment features keynote speaker actress Mayim Bialik, best known for her roles in Beaches, Blossom, and most recently Big Bang Theory. Mayim has a PhD in neuroscience, is the author of Beyond the Sling, a real-life guide to raising confident, loving children the attachment parenting way, and is an observant Jew in Hollywood. We will hear Mayim in conversation with Maya Bernstein, Strategic Design Officer for UpStart Bay Area.
I'm wondering if there was one particular moment where you sort of were inspired or engaged to experience and express your Jewish life in a richer way.
Yeah, I mean, it happened, away from the industry, but I can still share it, I guess. I'm really happy that it was more a series of moments. The Baal Tshuva experience is really complicated, and things. If everything happens all at once, it's often overwhelming, and I think for me it would have been. So I was, kind of very scientific and methodical about it. When I started studying with my chavrusa, my study partner through Partners in Torah, that was literally where we started. She said, what are the worst things you think about Judaism? Let's talk about it. And I was thinking, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. I've got a list. And we literally went through the list. And so that was really helpful. But my rabbi at UCLA Hillel, as I mentioned, Chaim Seidler-Feller, he was, a Soloveitchik student, and he was YU educated. I had never met a modern Orthodox person before. I knew they sort of existed vaguely. And my religious Zionist family, one of my cousins she said, I thought we were modern Orthodox because I wore denim skirts, So my only knowledge of kind of non-Hasidic Orthodoxy was still very ultra-Orthodox. It wasn't what we call Maccabees, modern Orthodoxy. But Rabbi Seidler-Feller, obviously was choosing to teach in a Hillel, which is an egalitarian sort of community, which now has, an Orthodox minyan, a conservative, and a reform there. That was just starting when I was at UCLA. But, sorry, that was a long lead-in. The sort of moment was when I started going to Friday night services, and true story, my mother said, you'll never meet a guy if you go there on Friday nights. She didn't expect that, I would want to be in shul on Friday nights. But what I saw specifically on Friday nights was someone so incredibly intoxicated with formal Jewish learning. I mean, it was coming out of every pore. And yet he was so engaged in the modern world. His wife's a therapist, and he keeps a strict kosher home. And I had never seen the picture come together. And that literally he was so full of knowledge. There's nothing he didn't know, whether it was Talmud or history or Sephardic Sephardic Haggadahs from the southern region of Iraq in medieval time. He knew everything. And I could never have that level of knowledge, but I did what he told me to do. I looked to people that have a life that I want, and I asked them, how do you do it? And I listened to what he told me. I listened when he told me to be skeptical, and when he told me not to be. And there's many of us who came out of those years who became more religious than him now. But it was that concept of Jewish learning, which I feel should be part of every Jewish education. As grateful as I was to the synagogue I grew up in, this is not esoteric Judaism to be able to learn sort of that richness and that history, and even a secular knowledge of what the Talmudic process is. Things like that, I think, really made it a richer experience. I'm very grateful to him. I mean, I consider him kind of like my second dad, I see him and his wife as, if I was born in Borough Park, I would have, followed in a very different path, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to y'all, so.
So
I'm happy to be sitting here. I just meant it would be very different.
We're happy you're here.
Everybody
too.
Okay? All right.
So, it's interesting, we meet these individuals that influence us, but we also have to be open to that influence. And one of the things that UpStart does is try and create opportunities and experiences for people to be in a place where Jewish experiences resonate. And so maybe I'll use that to transition to a question about veganism. Because you've shared that you're a vegan and writing a vegan cookbook.
Thank you. See you later.
So I'll share a little story that happened to me and use that to ask you a question. I, for a long time, was a very strict vegetarian. And I entered the world of Jewish education because I was a Russian major. I love languages, and I studied Russian in college, and I ended up part of a program that ran summer camps in Russia for Jewish kids. And then I lived in Germany for a year working with the Russian Jewish community in Germany. Long story, I'm happy to talk more about that another time. And so I was in Munich for the holiday of Sukkot, and we were leading programs for the kids. And I told the cook, there was an Israeli woman who was providing kosher food for the couple of days I was there. And I said, I'm a vegetarian, so please just make sure whatever you serve me, just only serve me vegetarian stuff. So I'm eating this soup, and I'm pretty sure it's chicken floating around in there. And I say, excuse me, is it chicken in there? And she's like, yeah, it's a vegetarian soup with some chicken pieces. So what I'm wondering for you is your vegan identity connected to kashrut in any way? And then does it actually sometimes contradict? Like, does being a vegan actually harm your Jewish kashrut expression?
Right. So I think there's many ways to answer this. I think first of all, I get very stark meat eaters say to me, you can't, observe the Sabbath if you don't, whatever, cook a fleischig cholent. I make a very good vegetarian cholent, I should say. You don't, yes, there are people who believe that sort of the Freilichkeit and the joy of those kinds of holidays should involve meat. I have not found a definitive rabbinic ruling saying it be so. For Pesach, I found a very frumish, vegan, kind of Pesach source book that talks about some of the Talmudic replacements for zroa. You can use a beet, a bloody-looking beet. So there are different things that I do. I am working on a vegan cookbook, but honestly, the interest for me in creating this cookbook was to share the veganized Jewish recipes that I've, taken the time and effort to make because, a huge part, as I mentioned, in joy for me is being able to bake. So I have a vegan sufganiyot recipe, and like vegan latkes, things that you wouldn't realize. It's the eggs. Like I said, I'm like parav times a million, because parav can have eggs. So so vegan hamantashen, which I just made, and my goal is to have it taste good and be enjoyable to my children, so that they don't think that all Jewish pastry tastes weird. But the final answer, and this is sort of like the schmaltzy answer, forgive me, schmaltz, chicken fat. The schmaltzy answer is that, another amazing thing about Judaism is it can handle all of me. It can handle all of us. There's not a community of Jews that is not there to welcome any kind of Jew there is. There may be Jews who live differently than you would or than I would. I may live differently than you would. But Judaism supports and holds everything about me. I'll meet... I am actually friends with a couple of the Maccabees and sort of that, more like...
The Maccabees are a group.
The Maccabees are a Yeshiva University a cappella group that they had a video that went viral 2 Hanukkahs ago. And they're more of sort of the right-wing modern Orthodox world. And, they can't figure me out either. I talk like a yeshiva girl and then I don't look like a yeshiva girl, right? So there is a God for me no matter what I embrace and no matter what part of me there is. And I think that's true for everyone, and that's, I think, the beauty of the flexibility, honestly, of the halachic system that many of us choose to reject. So that was a schmaltzy answer, but it's okay.
And then you're part of a new organization called Shamayim Va'aretz.
I was part of it starting up. I actually, I'm not in, I don't know if they've continued, but we did a really funny things that people say to vegan Jews, and we hit on a lot of sort of the stereotypes. We actually
did a
video. Well, I surveyed meat-eating friends of mine and said, what are the mean things you say to me whenever I mention vegan something? So yeah, it was a funny video.
There's something about the apples and the honey for
That's
Rosh
right, like
Hashanah.
how do you not have apples and honey on Rosh Hashanah? We do apples and agave. I still sing Tepuchim Udvash. I figure... In Hebrew, I'll sing the song, right?
Apples dipped in agave.
Right, yeah, it doesn't have the same. In Hebrew, it doesn't sound the same.
Right. Okay, so one of your most recent blogs on Kveller is about Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And so I'm asking this question as a mother who is struggling to figure out how do you do it all? How do you have a vibrant, meaningful Jewish life, right? And we know that that takes time. I also try and bake hamantashen with my kids, and my mom always used to say, she's a doctor, that her colleagues would freak out before Thanksgiving, and she'd be like, yeah, imagine cooking 2 days sukkahs with 20 people sleeping in your house, and you can't turn on the oven, right? So being observant in any way, right, making these holidays resonant for our children takes a tremendous amount of time. Being a present parent, and especially, if you'll talk a little bit more about your attachment style parenting, that takes a tremendous, not just amount of resource, like human self-resource, but time as well. And then to be successful as a professional takes a lot of time. So,
so
how do you do it?
Right.
What's the answer? What's the secret?
Well, I don't know if I have an answer or a secret. I mean, two of the things, a lot of people don't like to hear, especially young women who haven't had kids yet. I don't sleep a lot, and I don't have a very active social life. I also don't watch television, and I don't really go to the movies. Now, these are things that many people enjoy doing. I'm not saying you can't enjoy TV or that you have to choose between television and your children. For me, in order to get my life done, and this I learned from my rabbi at Hillel. He would sleep, I think, an average of 4 hours a night, and he was incredibly productive. And so again, like that, I work when my boys are sleeping, and I get up before they get up, and I do stuff. It's not for everyone. I get that some people want to sit in front of the TV. My parents are both very kind of type A, and I definitely, they're both really. I was just raised like very kind of like productive that way, and I don't know. I think I made decisions that were not necessarily what the academic world would have suggested, but for me, I only have one chance to be a mom to my boys, and that still has to be my number one. So whereas with holidays or things like that, like, oh, I get driven to work and I don't turn on the lights, like there's no job that I could do that would violate the fabric of the relationship with my children. I'm very grateful for my two boys, but yeah, my sitcom schedule allows for me to have a summer with them. I'm off every 2 or 3 weeks for a week. I don't work weekends. We don't tape Friday nights. These are real blessings, but yeah, I wouldn't be looking for a career as a movie actress where I'd be away from them or have to schlep them and have them living on a set. I mean, that's not a life for them. And yes, we homeschool, but obviously it's Mike that's with them when I'm working. But they love their life. We love the flexibility of homeschooling because then if I do travel, I'm able to see them, and we sometimes we would travel together. But that's really what it comes down to. I was not put on this planet to make money. I was not put on this planet to win an Emmy. I was put on this planet to pass forth what our ancestors died for thousands of years, and that's to give my soul to the next generation, whatever way that is.
Thank you.
You're
I must
welcome.
say it's inspiring to hear how grounded you are in your values, and I'm sure your teacher is quelling.